Petrum Shirokin called it in the 1950s sexual revolution. Might be connected to the Freemasonic tradition. Remember, this series is Freemasonry and Satanism. Masonry is a phallic cult. That obelisk in your city square downtown, the pointy thing made out of stone, is supposed to represent a penis. Masonry is a phallic cult. Phallicism was the religion of the Canaanites, the land of Canaan, then called Palestine, now called Israel. Baal was their principal god, and Astaroth, Baal's wife, their principal goddess. In the Babylonian, her name was Ishtar. This is the stuff they're bringing back, and they are ever so serious. As serious as the Romans, who embraced Christianity and had 8 or 9 crusades, and slaughtered the Arabs over there taking over the land of Canaan, Jerusalem. It's pretty serious business. So now there's a new change. Baal worshippers sacrifice children to fire. May 1st, the communist holy day, is also the high holiday of the Illuminati and witchcraft. This is not me saying these things. Go get the book. I just read and I get shocked even at this point into my research. 11 years. The United Nations is working to gain respect for sodomites. In the North American Boy Lovers Association, our ambassadoress to the United Nations, Madeleine Albright, a Jewish, I guess it's a Jewish woman, who claims this resolution was not noticed by herself before it was accepted by the United States, is the daughter of a former European communist. So remember how this all plays out. World War I. Germany was winning the war. There was a betrayal by the Jews living in Germany and the ones outside of Germany. Many of the Jews in Germany were happy people. They had found their homeland, their utopia. Then came the Balfour Agreement during the war, and the tide changed, bringing in the brigades of millions or whatever of Americans and other people into this war, and dollars and weapons. So the tide turned on Germany, and afterwards Russia had been weakened, and out of New York came Karl Marx and Stalin and all these people who were secretly shipped to Russia, abducted the Tsar and his family and murdered them, and proceeded to take over the country with the aid of these United States banksters and other secret goings-on, even troops. Anyways, about 100 million Christians and other people were killed in Russia over the next plus or minus 15 years, from 1917, 27, 30. Russia was dark, and they were just mass murdering and destroying Christian churches, but not the Jewish temples. These are called the Bolsheviks and the Anunnaki Jewish people from that area. So apparently, from fleeing from Russia for all those years into Germany, they all wanted their revenge, these Jewish folks. And they intend to have revenge on the world, from my opinion. One, they hate Christianity because, remember, they are, in the Bible, the ones that's said to be responsible for having Jesus crucified. So the United Nations is working to gain respect for sodomites in the North American Boy Lovers Association. The Scottish Rite, 8th degree, 9th and 10th also, so I guess I'm going to have to read those and maybe share those in videos. Intendant of buildings, or master in Israel, is symbolized by the Pentagon or male phallic force. Why is the American Army Administration Building in Washington, D.C. called the Pentagon? Why are so many international spies both Jewish and homosexual or bisexual? Why are so many international spies both Jewish and homosexual or bisexual? The Masonic doctrine accepts all primitive dogmas that worship the phallus, but only Christian dogma is called bigotry. So if you're a Christian, you're going to be called a bigot. It'll be a hate crime to talk about the Ten Commandments. You'll be called a hater. The emblem of the 23rd degree, the Levites, is a golden candlestick with a lamp on top and 7 lamps. Well, here we go again. I mentioned that in the past video, were 7 sticks of incense. So the menorah, says the Jewish Chronicle, March 26, 1937. Listen to this. We Jews claim we possessed universal religion, a faith whose foundation we believe will one day be accepted by all mankind. And if you watch my videos, the Jewish Utopia, Bloody Zionism, Jack Bernstein, an American Jew who moves to Israel, and so many others, which I will release on my website, on YouTube, what they plan for we non-Jews, that they call goy or goyim, which means cattle, is not very nice. Actually, it's quite horrible. These people are vicious. For speaking an ill word towards them, they will have tongues ripped out, and worse. There's nothing godly about these people. It's all seemingly demonic. About as evil as you can get from what sex with 3-year-old children in the Talmud. It is by means of Freemasonry that the Jew, so the Jews control Freemasonry according to this author, who is a Jew by birth and race, will rule the universe with the crown Kether on his head and the kingdom Malkuth of the world at his feet. So they want to rule the universe. This is pretty spiritual stuff. Remember, 1/3 of the angels were kicked out of heaven for revolutionary activities, whatever they were doing. So where did these kicked out of heaven angels, spiritual beings, go to? Where were they sent to? What dimension? And is the portal in Geneva, CERN, are they supposed to let these beings into this dimension for some kind of revenge? Well, continuing on with this video, Saturday, what day is it? The 16th of July, 2016. Interestingly enough, the Day of Rage, which was supposed to happen yesterday, 37 cities all around the United States, I didn't hear any news. But there was some news about a attempted coup in Turkey, which apparently failed. So one just wonders, like 911, when some kind of false flag event will happen in the USA to throw our government into a martial law state, and conditions like Venezuela will occur here. All it's going to take is a nuclear explosion in some major city harbor, and they say the bomb was in a cargo container. So all cargo containers and truckings and shippings have to stop. Grocery stores will be empty in days, and starvation will proceed in a week or so. And people will start rioting, and everything will be accomplished for the New World Order folks. Believe it or not, it seems like that's a scenario a lot of people are saying will play out. We don't know what they're going to do to cause it. But crashing the dollar, stock market, World War III, plague, who knows? The dumping of chemicals in the sky, to me, is a serious concern. The microwave transmitters, which can transmit energy, and make all the people in a particular area agitated and go into rage. Imagine being cooked alive and you don't even know it, your brain, that you breathe in all the heavy metals which are dumped by the chemtrails intentionally. Weather control, crop failures. So then I read this book where they fabricated the Holocaust situation according to experts, as we will read in this book. Scientists went over there and took samples on the walls, and there would be some kind of residue of the gas, if that's what happened. Page 96, and I am going backwards from page 101. I don't want to do an audio book here, but maybe if you're so inclined, you'll go get this book and share it with your friends and family. We can wake people up. Or you can read it and make a video also. Western civilization is to be destroyed by Eastern occultism. So I'm continuing to read Helena Blavatsky's Alice Bailey, Evelyn Underwood, Kabbalah material. I got the book in the mail about this thick, ISIS Unveiled by Helena Blavatsky. And I read a book I got in the mail. I keep ordering books when I see them mentioned in my research about the Kabbalah. Quite an interesting read. I'm going to share that and make a video. So the next few videos I make, I printed out some press releases for 2016. That ought to be the bomb. Man alive, what is going on with the mind control of people, the constant bombardment of propaganda in the news? All fabricated to alter yours and my mind. But if you're awake and you notice it, they can't really affect you. They say, the statistics are 85% plus or minus, people are under some kind of mind control, which means they believe what they see on TV, the news, etc. Talk shows, Ellen DeGeneres, whatever. And if you try to tell them the truth, they are so mind controlled, it's in their brain, it's like a resistor. And you'll notice that they get agitated. Don't even bother saying you believe in God or you're a Christian. They're going to go, oh, you can't talk about that. But they can go get a satanic tattoo and believe that it's okay to do anything. Pansexual, have sex with anything. And don't say anything disparaging about a transvestite, transgender person. Using some guy who wants to be a girl, so he dresses up in high heels and uses a girl's bathroom. So wackos are cool, normal people are not cool anymore. Which is the way it's said to be at the end times. Up will be down, down will be up. 2 plus 2 will equal 5. Not 4 anymore. Alright, so Western civilization is to be destroyed by Eastern occultism. Page 96. See Weston, pages 240, 241. So there are references to this material. All these articles I read, they're citing where they got the source. Israel Regardi's book, The Eye in the Triangle. Yes, the one on your dollar bill, put there by Henry Wallace, who pursued Gurus in the East. So these people are all into these Gurus in Kabbalah, and they're the ones who put the all-seeing eye on the U.S. $1 bill. Do you get it? Has an introduction by Robert Anton Wilson of the infamous San Francisco area. He states that Aleister Crowley, this is the guy that's called the evilest man alive, who wrote the book of the law, and the one law is, instead of God's 10 commandments, do as thou wilt. And it was famous for apparently killing and having sex with children in satanic rituals. States Aleister Crowley meant by the eye of whore, the anus. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So Aleister Crowley said it was the eye of the whore, which means the eye of the anus. Remember, they're into sodomy. This is a religion. They worship the penis, the phallic. The obelisk in your downtown city square. Who put that there everywhere? Why is there one in every downtown city square? Coincidence? Like the temples of Baal, they were trying to, well, they did set them up. And apparently 1,000 of them were constructed, financed, and orchestrated by the United Nations, which has a meditation room, which is also of the occult. Phallic worship, Satanism, Luciferianism, Isis, Horus, Osiris, Ra, Baal, Moloch, and many more names. And evolution is brought in by Anton to justify our primal nature, independent of church and state authority. Crowley, here we go again, this is not me saying this, page 97, sacrificed children in magic circles to evoke demons. Top 2 sentences. I don't make this stuff up. Go get this book and see the unbelievable in print. To evoke demons, blood, he said, was necessary for the evocation. He was a student of the Kabbalah. Here we go. Madonna doing her stuff with the horns. The football halftime show's all satanic. He was a student of the Kabbalah, like Madonna, and all the other elitists. And one of the highest Masons, here we go, Freemasonry, and Satanist in the world. It's in this book. He was a student of Kabbalah and one of the highest Masons and Satanists of the world. On page 96 of his book, Magic, he writes that in the initiation of the new eon, the new age, there we go with that word, the whole planet must be bathed in blood. A ghastly similar dictum is found in the Royal Masonic Cyclopedia under Kabbalah. Royal Masonic Cyclopedia, I think I have one. Under Kabbalah, page 415, since all souls pre-exist and all are reincarnated 3 times, this is Kabbalah doctrine, it follows that the advent of the Jewish Messiah is retarded by the very few souls now entering the world. For the soul of the Messiah, pre-existence, like all others, cannot be born until all human souls have passed through the term of earthly probation, and it will be the last born soul, after which the whole Purana of souls, cleansed and purified, will be restored at the Jubilee into the bosom of the infinite source. Perhaps this is why Global 2000 calls for the annihilation of people and abortion and famine used as tools by the elite Masonic Brotherhood. So there's a lot of famine going on all over the world. Venezuela, you should see the dogs and the people. All the children, you can see their bones on their chest, and the dogs like skeletons. People picking through garbage, and this is a video I'm going to make almost right away here. Show you the pictures and read you the articles. They're planning this for the world, and they're mentioning Global 2000. So I'll talk about that next. So if you've been watching my videos, I am a skeptical person. I don't believe everything I read. So when they mention documents like Global 2000 reports, I go look it up. I want to see it. So you can plug in those keywords and find it yourself. But listen up. Boston College Environmental Affairs Law Review. Volume 8, Issue 4, 8-1, 1980. This has been going on a long time, and I got books that go back all through the 1900s. The Global 2000 Report to the President. This article is brought to you for free and open access by the law journals at Digital Commons at Boston College Law School. It has been accepted for inclusion in Boston College Environmental Affairs review by an authorized administrator of Digital Commons at Boston College Law School. For more information, contact Nick Saldowski at bc.edu. So, recommended citation. So, law, when you fight cases in court, you have to reference documents and justification for issues to win your case, whatever. So, let's read this. Let's see what they need to use for justification in law arguments in court. The Global 2000 Report to the President, Entering the 21st Century, Gus Speth, S-P-E-T-H, Major Findings and Conclusions. If present trends continue, the world in 2000, remember this is 1980, will be more crowded, more polluted, less stable ecologically, and more vulnerable to disruption than the world we live in now. I'm still recovering from the intense sky-sprayed material that was causing me to gasp for air, like asthma. I finally went to the pharmacy and got some strong medicine for that, and it seems to be kicking all that stuff out of my lungs. And I had this happen to me a lot in Florida, between menthol cough lozenges and Mucinex to dry up all that stuff that gets in your lungs after they spray some heavy chemicals. So I learned a few tricks to survive that stuff. So I'm talking a little strange. I'm finally trying to get over that. Finally went and got some medicine. To talk to the pharmacist and say, hey, every time that hazy stuff gets in the sky, I start gasping for air, and apparently it coats your lungs, and you're not getting as much oxygen in your breaths. It's kind of scary. You wake up at night gasping. So the trick I learned is get some Mucinex or some other stuff they have behind the counter that you don't need a doctor for. Tell them you have asthma. And they'll check your ID because it's pretty potent stuff. And apparently it will clean up your lungs and you can breathe. So let's see what it says here again. If present trends continue, the world in 2000 will be more crowded, more polluted, less stable ecologically, more vulnerable to disruptions than the world we live in now. In 1980, serious stresses involving population. See, they have a goal to depopulate the planet. These evil forces, now that we've passed the year 2000, are looking into the next 1,000 years, and they want to build this utopia, now that these Zionist Jewish folks have the Palestinians' land a home base, and they have a plan for a much larger country, as we mentioned in this book, from the Euphrates to the Nile. So while I'm on that conversation, I did go get some of my pictures and wanted to show you exactly what that entails. These are, you can look up Zionism on the Yahoo image site, and you can find pictures and maps of the proposed news Israel, I guess, because Israel is just a little tiny dot near my tip of my finger, but the real size of the country is that whole thing in red, which is some kind of biblical prophecy from in the Iraq, as you can see, down to Egypt. That's a huge country. So you know why 9/11 happened, and they're overthrowing all their countries, and they're bombing the Hades out of Syria, which was in the news today. France, England, Germany, Russia, the United States, Pentagon, everybody is bombing Syria. And they got these pictures of what the greater Israel will be like eventually. And apparently they have nuclear weapons and something called the Samson option, that if the world tries to stop them from taking over the world, Zionism, ruling the world from Mount Zion in Israel, then they will let loose those nukes on major cities all over the world, and the whole world will go down in flames with them, the Samson option. Look that up. This stuff is no joke. Pictures again on the Zionist site. The octopus has been used for 100 years to, I guess, show the Zionist Jewish people engulfing the planet. And like any common sense corporation that has to restructure or downsize and get rid of a lot of people, I guess these corporations that own, like United States of America is now a corporation, that they have more people than they want to feed and take care of, and what they don't need. So they need to find an excuse, and they have to create all kinds of documentation so that they can eliminate masses of people, probably by starvation, plagues, etc., sky spraying, droughts. And the International Jew, the World's Problem, the Dearborn Independent, a newspaper purchased and operated by Henry Ford, the automaker. So don't believe me. Go get the Dearborn Independent books on used book sites on the internet and read for yourself what these Zionist Yiddish Jews were doing in America after the Russian Revolution, after World War I. They were shipping here, had camps all over Europe training these Yiddish Jews to immigrate into the United States. And almost nobody else at that time was allowed to immigrate in. And they were taking over cities like New York, and they took over the movie theater business and all kinds of other things, created the porn industry, like they did in Germany in the 1800s, and the liquor industry, and then of course they were taking brand name labels from Kentucky distilleries, we'll go over that, bringing them to Louisville or Chicago, keeping that brand name label on there, but using only 10% of that original quality liquor and adding 90% of some other chemicals, which apparently started making people go insane and crazy. Maybe is what caused Prohibition. They were poisoning and creating toxic liquor. Believe it or not, in Henry Ford's book, the Dearborn Independent. I just happened to print these pictures. This is what we're dealing with. And apparently over there in Israel, there's talk about rebuilding King Solomon's temple. And they got these Jewish people that go up to this wall every day, right now, and put their head against it and pray. And some say they're having sex with the wall or something. It's some kind of sexual ritual. But they're so determined. They're lined up there every day doing this. What are they praying for? For their Messiah to come in them to take over the world. I kid you not, if you go look the pictures up, you'll see it. Again. Apparently they're going to have a pretty good sized country. And the Zionist Jews are represented by the snake. Least we forget many, and remember there's, in my opinion, 3 types of Jewish people, as well as probably 3 types of Christian people, Muslims and everything else. And it makes sense. The Orthodox, who still go by the Old Testament, believe in God, the 10 Commandments, Moses. The Reformed, who rejected God and went to the Reformed religion, the Talmud, Zohar, Kabbalah, which is the satanic, Luciferic demons, interdimensional beings, like CERN, they're trying to open up the portal. So they've turned from God to God's enemy, because I guess that's more beneficial to them. They don't have those rules and laws. So that's 2 types, the good Jews and the bad Jews, the ones that want God or the ones who went to the devil. And of course the 3rd type is secular, people who don't really participate too much in religion, like me and many other people, don't go crazy to the... I've lived my whole life, I guess, as a secular Christian, believing in God, but not really getting crazy about church or trying to preach to anybody. So as a Christian, there are the Orthodox Christians who are serious about it. And there are some people who are Christians, they say they are, but they do pretty evil things, including probably the Kabbalah and being in the mafia and politicians who lie to the people. But they'll get up on the podium and say they're Christians. And then, of course, the general population, just like the rest of the world, is not seriously religious one way or the other, secular. So 3 types: God, the devil, or not interested in religion, which is what most people are. And the evil forces are playing on that with all their propaganda. They don't want you getting wind of that when you do pray, God does listen. And when the end time comes and the disaster comes, it says in the Bible, whoever believes in Jesus will be saved. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to pick a side. They want you to stay secular. They want you to believe there's no God and believe in this doctrine of pansexualism and that murdering all those people and the Arabs is real. Those crisis actors and all the shootings everywhere and bombings where people they say are committing suicide, even in Bosnia, Egypt, United States. It's crazy. It's not happening that way. They're creating it to mind control people. So let's get back to this Global 2000 after my rant on all that. Now that we know that in 1980 they created all these reports, the Global 2000 report to the president. So serious stresses involving population, resources, environment are clearly visible ahead. So they knew, they lied, but they thought they knew and they could prove that year 2000 there would be too many people, would all be standing elbow to elbow everywhere in the cities. It wouldn't be any more gas or water or food, and the environment would be terrible. Meantime, like under the Rocky Mountains or in Washington State and in many places, Mexico, all over the world, there are abundant resources of oil. But they don't want to use that. They want to reduce the population and create a catastrophic situation. Starvation and famine. Population reduction. Get rid of unwanted people, probably like the Georgia USA Guidestones say. Look them up. They want to have 500 million people worldwide and maintain that population. So that's all they need for food production for them. Remember, they're elitist, and I'm not quite sure they actually have human DNA like the rest of us. They might really be some kind of reptilian, shape-shifting creatures, or people who worship these shape-shifting creatures, reptilian, and they're all in cahoots in the satanic Luciferic doctrine. And with CERN, apparently, there's some pictures that are very interesting on the internet, videos. But there wasn't any clouds in the sky, and they had cranked CERN up in Geneva, Switzerland, the collider. And in the sky, you could see actual, like a tornado, sideways, a vortex. And it was creating some kind of vortex, and it was sucking in the wind, and you could see the air and the wind and hear it. Oh my, what are they doing? Who are we dealing with? That's why I make these videos. It's just too much to believe. It's a Twilight Zone video I'm making right here, it seems like. But this document you can go look up. The pictures you can go look up I just showed you. This book you can go buy. So how much reality do I have to get for me to believe this craziness? I'm looking up at the sky, and there's sky spraying lines right now. You know me, why don't I just show you? I don't know if you can see them, but there's one right there between the clouds. Another one over here on top of the tree. Another one over here. So they're dumping chemicals on top of the clouds. So in this Global 2000 report, if they say there's going to be environmental issues, you think they're controlling the weather, creating droughts, and causing me to have, and probably a lot of other people, have health problems. Probably killing bugs and bees and getting the aluminum byproducts, heavy metals, strontium, bronium, on geoengineeringwatch.org with Dane Wigington. Go look up some of his material. So back in 1980, they created this Global 2000 report mentioned in this Holocaust Dogma book. I look up everything, a lot of stuff. I've already ordered books that were mentioned in this book that we'll go over. Barring revolutionary advances in technology, life for most people on Earth will be more precarious in 2000 than it is now, unless the nations of the world act decisively to alter current trends. So they're trying to take over the world. Global New World Order. Even politicians are now saying, I watched a video, one politician, he said, the New World Order is here. We're going to have to deal with it. So in other words, enslavement of the people and population reduction procedures are in place, programs. So who gets to live and who has to die? And obviously the Venezuelans have to die, even though I looked at a recent report I went over in a recent video, and the gold and diamonds and oil and all the other resources are off the chart down there. Why would the people be starving? They want to get rid of the people. That's it. It's this New World Order, New Age. This, in essence, is the picture emerging from the U.S. government projections of probable changes in world population. Now, who controls the United States of America? Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress, called a Kismet or something, when somebody said, hey, we can't keep killing these Palestinians or something like that, or taking their land, because the USA will stop us. And Sharon shouted, don't worry about America, we control America. And the current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, look up what he said in Fink's Bar. We hate America, we're going to destroy America. We're going to make them regret not wanting to be our slaves. And it says in this book and other documents, they control the Freemasons and all these Mystery School of Babylon cults, which are into the Kabbalah, Zohar, Talmud, and Jewish Utopia by Professor Higgins that I read. I'm going to republish that, post it on YouTube. The Jewish Utopia, Bloody Zion, Jack Bernstein, the American Jew who moved to Israel and told all, and many others. I'm downloading right now while I'm doing this video 85 part 3 of Morals and Dogma. It talks about the Ankh, the Tau, the cross with the circle on top, or the snake on it. So it's a cross, which means they worship, and the snake on it is the snake. They worship the snake. And their symbol for 6 is this. That little mark there with a hook on top, and 3 of those are 666. And on that monster drink, you see it, and many other symbols everywhere are these incognito, disguised symbols for 666 or 6 or 66. And other occult symbols are everywhere, as we all know. This, in essence, is the picture emerging from the U.S. government's projections of probable changes in the world. There's some notes on the bottom of this page. 695, that's a pretty big report. This is page 695. The Global 2000 study, initiated by President Carter in 1977, so I'm sure he didn't initiate it. It was his president and his Zionist Jewish handlers who probably did it, is a 3-year effort by the federal government to discover the long-term implications of present world trends. So back there in 75 and 76 and 68 and 69, when they were fabricating going to the moon, They were already planning for the future, for the New World Order changes, New Age, and just trying to destroy Christianity. The long-term implications of present world trends in population, natural resources, and the environment. The report was prepared by the President's Council on Environmental Quality, in which Gus Speth is chairman, in conjunction with the Department of State and 11 other federal agencies. Gerald A. O'Barney is the study director. We know they're trying to disarm Americans, and I also in a previous video pointed out that a lot of the federal agencies are stockpiling ammunition and weapons while they're trying to disarm the people. Do you have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure this out? If you were going to attack somebody, you'd like them to not be as armed as you are, or to be disarmed. And I guess they would just like people to voluntarily, because the government says so, to lay down and die. Page 696. Rapid growth in world population, this is principal findings, will hardly have altered 2000. The world's population will grow from 4 billion in 1975 to 6.35 billion in 2000, an increase of more than 50%. I believe, from my knowing how many people they've been killing already, I believe this is a lie. I don't believe there's 6 billion people on the planet. I think it's another big lie, like the lie that there was really 6 million people thrown in gas chambers and gassed to death. They're using it as a fulfilling prophecy for the New Age Jewish Talmudic religion. And a lot of scientific studies have been done, and people have been persecuted and prosecuted for saying these things. Scientists, it's in this book. You go get it. I mean, I got a big 200-page book here. How many pages? 200 pages. And this guy cites case after case after case after case by a lot of famous Jewish people, too, who said that this is not true. There was no 6 million people burnt alive. There were a lot of prisons and work camps, and a lot of people died of starvation and disease, yes. But they weren't focused just on Jewish people. Matter of fact, at that time, they were shipping out Jewish people to Palestine. But they were handpicking the Jews that went to Palestine. It had to be the ones who would want to go along with the Kabbalic, satanic New World Order. The good ones, the Orthodox Jews, had to stay behind and be put in those camps. And I have a book by a Polish lieutenant that I read. I'll have to go over that, who details the whole thing about how these good Jewish people were put in these little towns with fences around them, and they were fleeced of all their jewelry and money and everything, and finally disposed of. They weren't going along with the satanic Jewish new religion, New World Order Zionist. And so it was the evil Rothschild Jews and the Illuminati and the Freemasonic lodges, not all the people in the Freemasons. People who join, if they're not hand-picked to rise up, just belong to these civic social groups and wind up getting selected for nice, cushy jobs, maybe in charge of the Department of Sheriff's Office for dog catchers, or county sheriff, or all the water department. So they have special privileges to get these jobs in control of everything through the Masonic lodges. Everybody, that's freely known. That's advertised on their websites. So the evil people control these Masonic lodges, Freemasons, and a lot of people in the Freemasons are not aware of this, and a lot of them became aware of these things, and in numerous times throughout history, many of the Freemasons quit when things became exposed. This is common knowledge again. I got the books. Regional, page 697. Regional water shortages will become more severe. In the 1970-2000 period, population growth alone will cause requirements for water to double in nearly half the world. Need I also point out, let's just say the gross national product is 10 trillion. We can say more than 9 trillion the government is taking out for interest payments to these banksters, Zionist, Rothschild, Rockefeller chases, and weaponizing and 200 military bases all over the world and all kinds of secret black programs, and even microwaving the people and putting toxins in the sky. So if we make 10 trillion in the gross national product, I'm not using exact numbers, I'm just giving proportions here. More than 9 would be going for all these other than people's concern to taking over the world, and less than 1 trillion, probably more significant, even half of that or half of that, 25 billion, 20 billion, if that, are spent on the people. So if they weren't doing this take over the world here in the United States, can you imagine how comfortable we would all be? And we would be wealthy enough to be shipping trainloads of food down there to Venezuela so they weren't starving. But we the people don't have any control. The powers that be have taken it away. And people who wake up and probably start to get in the way of this organized New World Order, apparently in Italy, they have these locations where they have these Zionist, Jewish, other Illuminati people from other cults, organization called Assassins, and they actually go around the world killing people to shut them up, according to what I have been researching. So don't believe everything I say. I need some help with this research, but apparently that was what was disclosed. So here they're talking about in 1980, regional water shortages will be more severe. So if they knew that was happening, why are they spending 9 trillion plus, if whatever the percentage is, 90% of the GNP or more, on this world domination thing, and a pittance on the people, if they knew they were going to have these problems? Just saying, it's not logical. Their priorities are out there. I think these people are seriously, mentally sick. Psychopaths. Probably worshiping these demonic beings. A lot of them are probably possessed. Water to double nearly half the world. Still greater increases will be needed to improve standards of living. In many LDCs, developing countries, lesser developing countries, water supplies will become increasingly erratic by 2000 as a result of extensive deforestation. So the only people deforest are these corporations. It's not we the people. Development of new water supplies will become more costly virtually everywhere. Well, so much for them being in charge and them predicting what's happening now and accomplishing it through intentional sky spraying and other things. Entering the 21st century, the world in 2000 will be different from the world today in important ways. There will be more people. For every 2 persons on the earth in 1975, there will be 3 in 2000. And if you've ever flown on a plane from Atlanta to Miami, there's a lot of forest in the area in South Carolina, North Carolina. It just seems like it's populated because they've huddled the people into these cities. And they've taken away the jobs, and they've created a massive monster China with all the manufacturing. And regrettably, that has caused a lot of pollution problems in China. So, it's crazy. It's all intentional. There's books and evidence to prove it. And I've got some future videos that are just going to be over the top. The information seems like everything is coming out more and more right now. The gap between the richest and poorest will have increased. You should see some of the pictures I looked at. I'm going to go over in a video with Venezuela. Apparently, the wealthy people down there are having parties like the Hunger Games movie. Tables full of opulent food and wine and cakes and puddings and turkeys and everything. And the people in Venezuela, you can see the bones and the children instead of any kind of fat on them, and the dogs, and they're eating dogs and pigeons and picking the garbage. Literally Hunger Games, a country that is so full of oil and diamonds and gold and resources. They just want to get rid of those people. These people who rule our world don't want to be responsible and do their job with proper world management. They would rather just play their opulent lifestyle. And the simplest way to take care of all that is just to get rid of the people. So it seems in my research. The gap between the richest and poorest will have increased. Page 698. Global 2000. 698. What page was that? Environmental Affairs. Oh, it's 2 pages, 698. Atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide and ozone-depleted chemicals are expected to increase at rates that could alter the world's climate. So back in 1980, they're saying that the carbon dioxide, what I'm exhaling, which is what makes the green behind me grow, that trees and plants thrive on carbon dioxide, and ozone depletion chemicals are expected to increase at rates that could alter the world's climate. So could alter the world's climate back in 1980. They were already creating the fear-mongering, so it's all a lie. Even Donald Trump says the global warming thing is a big lie. In the upper atmosphere significantly by 2050. 2050. Radioactive and other hazardous materials present health and safety problems in increasing numbers of countries. Again, I say, if the gross national product is, let's say for the world, 10 trillion, why are they spending 9 trillion on world domination and poisoning the people? If they'd have spent that money on improving conditions and technologies all over the world, we would all be living in utopia lifestyles. But they don't want that. They want to dominate, and they have sick and they're perverted. Sex with children, sacrificing children and people, and much more. Their idea of a utopia is not a world full of that's treating people decently. Extinctions of plant and animal species will increase dramatically. Hundreds of thousands of species, perhaps as many as 20% of all species on Earth, will be irretrievably lost as their habitats vanish, especially in tropical forests. The future depicted by the U.S. government projections briefly outlined above may actually understate the impending problems. All right. I want to read a little bit more from the book here, and maybe a little bit more from the Global 2000 Plan or Concern, which was created in 1980. And I have numerous other books that I've shown that were published that said that the overpopulation of the planet was a dire concern back in the 1960s and 1970s. So they've been preparing for this for a long time. So that propaganda that we all see on the news, when we check our email or in the newspapers or TV programming and biodiversity and global warming, sustainability, with all these vast resources all over the planet, it seems to me they're a huge concerns, there's a couple of them. One is they want to get rid of, I guess what they think of as animals or profane or the ignorant masses. And the other one is they want to build a utopia with their DNA. Even Hitler was into the supreme beings. So let me read a little bit more here concerning the Holocaust Dogma. So they're trying to make this thing about saying we're never going to have any wars again and repeat of killing 6 million Jews, the horrible thing done on the planet, which apparently didn't happen that way. But they don't mention that when the Bolsheviks and the Zionists, Jewish folks after World War I in 1917, went into Russia, I don't think anybody argues 25 million Christians and other good people, I said other good people too, were starved and shot and hung. And if you said anything bad about Jewish people, you might have had your tongue ripped out. These people are horrible creatures. Not all Jewish people, of course. The ones who still stick with God are a lot of secular Jews who are not into any religion, not into the Kabbalah, not into Satanism, not into Luciferianism. Have been warning us that if you go on Zionism and Images, you'll see all kinds of Jewish folks protesting this. I've got the books and gone over the books, and will continue to go over the books, of famous, highly educated Jewish people saying the same thing I'm saying, publishing books like this. I'll keep saying it until hopefully people wake up. Occult symbolism. Here we back again. Kabbalah, occult. Simple an explanation. Esoteric is witchcraft. Voodoo, magic. It's real. It's just basically a higher physics, the knowledge of nature, how to open portals to other dimensions, communicate with spiritual beings. Remember, we are all spiritual beings. But those of us on this planet alive right now are in these human material bodies. And I think it's a gift from God to be able to have this opportunity to live on this beautiful planet. And apparently the enemies of God, the third of the angels that were kicked out, are still in spiritual form, some kind of, and they're in some kind of dimension, not in heaven, obviously. And they're jealous of humans, and they want to destroy humans, and are very upset with God for creating humans. According to what? It all adds up to me. So the occult, esoteric, Kabbalah, magic, it's all basically knowledge that they know that they have gone way out of their way, like destroying the Library of Alexandria, or even in Mexico when the Crusaders went down there, the Ponce de Leon, Christopher Columbus, and people like that. Well, anyways, when they marched into those cities in Mexico, 1300, 1400, whenever they went there, they made a beeline for the Shama's hut. They wanted the Shama's knowledge and artifacts, and then they would proceed to kill the Shama, like the priest, and start killing the people and taking all the gold. So they knew what they were doing with this knowledge of the occult, witchcraft. So, occult symbolism in the architecture of the Holocaust Museum. We do have a very weird looking sky right now, so maybe I should shoot another video of that. Well, I don't have to zoom up to show the sky spraying line. You can see that long one in the center of this video going this way. And all this dispersed. There's another spray line straight ahead, right in the center of this video. Another one over here. Look, some people might think they look like clouds, but clouds look like that over there. That stuff there is a big cigar, used to be a spray line. And when they disperse, like this one over here in the center of this video, and you can see the electromagnetic radiation in the center of this video. So there's geoengineering going on right over my head. So with that in mind, what we just looked at in the sky, occult symbolism in the architecture of the Holocaust Museum, page 92. The current librarian of Congress, James Billington, in his book, Fire in the Minds of Men. I have that book. I haven't read it yet. In writing of the occult origins of the revolutionary faith, as he calls it, recounts how Wusthoff's final blueprint for the Illuminati was entitled Pythagoras. So Pythagoreans are like geometry, mathematics, apparently having something to do with magic. So the fascination of the high Renaissance and Enlightenment for geometry and the philosophy of Pythagoras. They got something called cubism, and we all know about triangles, all-seeing eyes, numerology, 666, etc., 33 degrees, Masons, 32 degrees. Central geometric figures naturally are the square, the circle, and the triangle. We find a red square on the walls of the New York Chase Manhattan Bank in the lobby. A red square. We find the same square outside the Holocaust Museum. You think that's a coincidence? In a small plot of ground before the entrance, and a circle touching the square at 4 points inside of it. Remember, a star inside a circle is a place where witches perform magic. These symbols. Okay, and I'm not reading everything. Let us repeat again the fact that the windows with the 5 times 5 square, so the windows are 5 feet by 5 feet, of 5 by 5 square represents the important hypothesis of the Pythagorean equation, which also Masonically represents symbolically the bisexual, or mother and father, the androgynine. So if you know that picture I showed you of God, not God, but Baal, or the devil, with the horns and the 2 little children looking up at awe at him, that they wanted to put on the Capitol, front of the Capitol building in Oklahoma, but wound up, because they wouldn't let them in Oklahoma, wound up in Detroit, and then they had a ceremony for it, and everybody was dressed up like they were in witchcraft and stuff. You don't have to look hard to see this stuff. 6-pointed star, a figure in red, the earth is bathed in blood. It's a part of a satanic ritual they need to do to bring about this new world order, new age of demonic control and microchipping people. The pictures are there. Just go look up Zionism and Satanism, any of this, you'll see it over and over and over. So they created this myth about the Holocaust, and anybody who questioned it, you're not allowed to question it. Probably over in Switzerland, Germany, and those countries, it would be illegal to even talk about it. They said it, so it happened. Even though it didn't happen, in my opinion, and my research, in this book, The Holocaust Dogma. It's part of this New World religion. The Holocaust Museum, we find many pyramids. So they got pyramids all over it. Pyramids on the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill. All the people into the Illuminati and the movie stars are doing the pyramid. We see it everywhere. Coincidence? And a 6-sided pyramidal dome on a hexagonal hall of remembrance. So they probably want to get rid of Easter, when Jesus rose from the dead, and bring us a holiday called Remembrance. And that holiday worldwide will be remembering the 6 million Jews who were gassed to death, who, in my opinion, weren't really gassed to death. A lot of people were in prison. A lot of people died of disease and starvation, or shot and stuff when they were sabotaging the work they were doing in factories for weapons and planes and all that stuff. It was a war. And the United States, didn't they imprison all the Japanese people? They always do that. And I do think the evil Jews did single out the good Jews and have them put in all those internment camps in Poland. As that one book I went over, which I'll have to go over, written by a lieutenant in the Polish military. Anyways, back to the book. So they want to create a hall of remembrance in the foreground. Note also that the doors and decorative windows are perfectly square, or the necessary 90 degrees of Masonic occult lore. Note, too, that the new and off-limits to the public Bureau of Engraving. So they have a Bureau of Engraving in this Holocaust Museum, and it's off-limits to the public. What's with that? Pictured in the May 1994 issue of the Criminal Politics, page 9, also sports gratuitous pyramidal skylights on the roof of the passage for cars. And I'm only reading my highlighted portion. I'm skipping a lot. Please note carefully that the museum's educational department has packaged curriculum units for use in American schools. So they will be taking Jesus, they already have, out of the schools, and they will be forcing on this Holocaust dogma, new religion, making a holiday called Remembrance Day. It will be a worldwide religion, a satanic religion, a Luciferic religion. And the books I go over, and I have gone over, will continue to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it by people smarter than me. Chartered by an act of Congress. Remember, Congress, the United States, is not supposed to mix federal government regulations and activities of the church. So that applies to Christianity, but it doesn't apply to this new satanic world religion that's coming. Chartered by an act of Congress in 1980, this museum will powerfully fulfill its vital mission to educate Americans about the Holocaust, an event with special meaning for all Americans and universal significance for the future of all humanity. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but when Mao, the communist, took over China, didn't they kill millions and millions? And in Russia, during the communist, Bolshevik, Zionist, Illuminati Jewish people took over Russia, didn't they kill 25 to 100 million Christians and good people? Where's the remembrance of that? World War I, World War II, and other wars. Considering that the largest group of Americans is the 50 million German children of immigrants to America, how does this education propose to belittle and defame them? So why do they want to put a guilt complex on we the people in the United States of America? I don't feel that I'm lesser than these Zionist Jewish folks, nor will I ever worship them. I believe in equality for all. But some people aren't happy with that, apparently. Curiously, in 3 AD, so that's 3 years after, or is that 300 years after Jesus' birth? And by the way, some people say there was no such thing as Jesus. It really didn't exist. Well, I beg to ask this question. What year is it right now? It's 2016. 2016 since when? Since Jesus was born. So the calendar sitting in everybody's house in the United States and probably practically the world is dated 2016. I don't know how much more evidence, if you were having a trial in court about whether Jesus was real or not, just bring in the calendar and throw it down. The evidence is in everybody's house in the world. On computers everywhere. NOAA, weather stations. NASA rockets, space, satellites in space, military time. But they would have people believe otherwise. Considering that the largest group of Americans is the 50 million German children of immigrants to America, how does this educational propose to belittle and defame them? Now remember, World War I, Hitler wasn't around then in his capacity as leader, but it was the Jewish people who betrayed Germany with the Balfour Agreement to get the land of the Palestinians. Germany was robust, industrial, growing, and I believe probably a little bit because, maybe a lot because, they were giving safe haven to the Jews that were fleeing Russia. Because Russia was banning and restricting them on their activities because they were having problems with them. As in almost 100 other countries over 2,000 years. 13, 14, 1500 years. Countries would welcome these Jewish people. And again, not all Jewish people. A lot of people, Jewish people, wanted to assimilate. But the ones who were into the demonic stuff, the Kabbalah and stuff like that, didn't want to assimilate, and were using magic, sacrificing children, and all kinds of horrific activities for personal gain and communication with beings and evil. So I guess at some point the country would get riled up and grab their pitchforks and run the people out across the border. Curiously, in 3 AD, a temple was finished in Heliopolis, Lebanon, called Baalbek. It featured a hexagonal forecourt, just like the Holocaust Museum. So the Holocaust Museum, for these people who were supposedly killed in Germany, 6 million burnt, supposedly, they built a Holocaust Museum that looks like the Temple of Baalbek. That Arch of Baal they were trying to put up, they did put up in New York and London, and 1,000 other ones sponsored by the Occultic United Nations. These are temples to the devil. So the Holocaust Museum is designed similarly. It was dedicated to Jupiter. Just as curious as the fact that Jupiter is the Roman name for the chief of the gods, who was called in Greek Zeus. More curiously, or as in Alice in Wonderland said, curiouser, is the fact that the chief god of the United Nations is Zeus, which has his statue in its building and central office in Geneva, Switzerland. Whoa, Geneva, Switzerland. Isn't that where CERN is, where they're opening a portal? Had the big vortex in the sky open up where you could hear the air sucking into it? And the statue of Shiva, the goddess of destruction out front, 666 in the logo. The homeland, home base for the Illuminati. The origin of the Frankenstein myth. And now we have the United Nations location there, which has a statue of Zeus in the building and the office. The New World Order under United Nations administration will not be religious-less, but only free from the presence of Jesus Christ, exactly as the Freemasonic religion is practiced in their worldwide lodges, with the only name not welcome being that of Jesus Christ. And in the Army, if you go look this up, in the new manuals, they were rewritten. If you mention Jesus and talk about that in the barracks or in the military, you can be court-martialed. But they have legalized homosexuals and other deviants to join the military. Deviants, people who are different. I don't hate gay people. I am very opposed to forcing it on the rest of us coming out of this occultic United Nations. I've known gay people all my life and said hello, neighbors, friends. Never thought a thing about it. But when I see those gay parades and they look like a freak show, what am I going to say? It's not a freak show? They don't look like Pokemon? A radically inclusive lodge among the Freemasons is the only Jewish allowed B'nai birth. Go look up B'nai birth. Sons of Covenant, or circumcised Jews. It is significant that it was the B'nai birth Mason, Lion Cagnon, that proclaimed Holocaust to be the keystone or fundamental principle of the New World Order. So the Holocaust, the Jews that really weren't killed in gas chambers, so say some scientists and other people, it's going to be the keystone, as in the front of this book it says, keystone on the top, of the New World Order, the Holocaust Dogma of Judaism. I didn't write this book. Smarter people than me wrote this book, much probably to the detrimental of themselves, and probably being called anti-Semites for trying to get a hold of the truth. Why did they build this Holocaust Museum, which apparently is a keystone to a new religion, with taxpayer dollars? We're not supposed to mix church and state. The February 1994 issue of Hilaire de Berrier's superb intelligence review, Hilaire de Berrier Report, reports that the French equivalent of the U.S. FBI put out a special report on the espionage activity of the Soka Gakkai, who purport to be fraternal order of Buddhist monks who find their way to godhood directly, not through the intermediaries such as Jesus Christ. All right, specializing in stealing patents and technology, that's what these people do. That they may be a Freemasonic lodge is the high regard in which they hold the French Revolution, which, according to Nestor Webster, I've gone over her books, a 19th century historian, that would have been during the 1800s, was Freemasonic in origin. So the French Revolution, a lot of people lost their heads in the guillotines, probably Christians and other good folks, was a Freemasonic in origin. Mr. Kaoshi Matsasumi, chief editorial writer of the Soka Gakkai newspaper, the Sayoko Shimbun, made a 10-day visit to Moscow in 1989, where he met professors, executives, and other members of the Communist Party at Moscow University. So this was 1989. So don't believe that communists has gone away, and don't believe that Russia's still not under their control. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they declared martial law in the United States and they used Russian and Chinese troops to suppress us, like they're doing in Venezuela right now, or all over the Middle East, killing everybody, and other places all over the world. Europe is a little bit in turmoil. Moving on here. Lessons of the 20th century, in which the crimes of religion and the evolution of a new social doctrine will be discussed. That was Mikhail Gorbachev. We know that Inca, Al-Qaeda, the new religion, will be Buddhism worldwide. He called the United States a fertile country to plant Buddhism. This is the New Age material. And from their large university in Los Angeles to many temples around the United States, he goes about the world planting his temples. Post of State Minister for International Cooperation of the Arab Republic of Egypt, held by Dr. Yosef Boutros Ghali, nephew of the United Nations Secretary General Boutros Ghali, who, by the way, is married to a Jew woman. According to the Jewish religion, no Jew is supposed to marry another non-Jew. Crazy stuff. Let's see what else I got. One more essay here, and then I get back to my 2000 report. The public law and presidential commission that created the Holocaust Museum. I'm only reading my highlighted portion, not all of it. Go get the book. Just the stuff I thought that was important to make a quick point. Mr. Kostmeyer further stated that the museum would open in April 1993 and stand as a truly remarkable symbol of our moral obligation to remember the Holocaust. We in the United States have a moral obligation to remember something that apparently, if they did it, that the Germans did to Jewish people? Why is that? Wouldn't we more want to remember the 100 million, 25 admitted Christians and other good people killed in the Russian Revolution? If you want to go by quantities. Or the soldiers in World War I and World War II, which they tricked the Americans into these wars by lies and deceptions. 9/11, wouldn't we want to remember that? I'm just curious why they want to put a guilt trip on me, an American, about something I had never had nothing to do with. I am half German and half Irish and a little French. I care about the world. Said DeLay of Texas. To date, June 16, 1992, congressional record, Congress has gone well beyond the figure of appropriating $33 million above the authorized figure for this Holocaust museum, American taxpayer dollars. They're not supposed to mix church and state. DeLay said that the CBO Congressional Budget Office estimated it would amount to $110 million by the year 2000, or $3 million more than the Air and Space Museum, 7 times the funding appropriated for the Lincoln, Jefferson, and Washington memorials combined. So they're putting this Holocaust museum above everything else. Whereupon Mr. Yates said it was always intended, author's emphasis, that after the museum was constructed, it would become part of the USA government, author's emphasis, as a museum comparable to the Smithsonian Institution. So the Smithsonian Institution is an interesting institution. Apparently, if you dig a hole in your backyard, let's say you're going to put in a swimming pool, and you find a skeleton the size of a refrigerator, giants, they will come there in black suits and confiscate everything and threaten you, imprisonment, life and death, if you tell everybody about lots of things that were discovered, even a cache of gold and statues in the Grand Canyon. I've been reading these reports. So these are the guys in the black suits coming out of the Smithsonian, so I guess they're going to have guys in the black suits enforcing this new worldwide religion coming out of this Holocaust museum location, which buildings are all built like occult facilities. According to people smarter than me, I'm reading in this book, DeLay of Texas, representative, and Yates here. He then referred to the President's Commission on the Holocaust of 1979, which proposes the museum become a federal institution, perhaps an autonomous bureau of the Smithsonian Institution, offering extensive services to public, to scholars, and other institutions. Why? Less than 2% of the people in the United States are Jewish. Why would there be 50% of them on the Supreme Court? Why would probably 70, 80, 90% of them be in leadership positions of organizations and government all over the world? Why? A little more here. Could any statement be more deplorable in honesty than this latter one of the President's Commission? To believe that honest scholarship would be encouraged in the examination of this memorial billed by Mr. Yates as reminding us of one of the incredible human crimes in history. A crime that cannot be investigated by all concerned parties, including the accused, the German people, is a crime protected by government lawyers and legislators. So when the Bolshevik Jews did go into Russia in 1917 after World War I, and abduct the Tsar, his family, wife, kids, and children, and everybody else, scurried them off to some countryside building, had them all line up for a photograph, and instead of a photograph, they machine gunned them all to death. Took over Russia and killed 25 to 100 million Christians and other good people, largely by starvation, and made it illegal to say anything negative about a Jewish person. And if you did and they caught you, you would die a very horrible death. Facts of the 20th century show that 6 million dead people are a pittance to the crimes of the Red regime, which was funded, according to the writing of all the greatest historians of the 20th century, by the Jewish international banking houses. That would be the Russian Revolution, which also created communism after they killed those 100 million Christians and other good people. And then, of course, they moved on to China and had the Red Revolution there with Mao and killed millions and untold millions to bring communism to China. And apparently, if you want to know what's coming to the United States if these people have their way, from what I'm reading, it's communism. And that's where you get microchipped, and you're assigned what you're going to do from when you're born to when you die. And you get a certain ration of food and certain square feet to live. Probably have to have permission to marry and have children. Because remember, to them, they call us Goy, G-O-Y, or Goyim, and the Zionist Jewish folks, not the good Jewish folks. And the Freemasons call us profane, and H.G. Wells says we're animals not to be trusted. That's what they think. And right now, they don't need these as many cattle, humans, non-Jews are called cattle, on the planet. They have to feed them, and if you don't need them, why you want to feed them? Get it? Got it? Facts of the 20th century show that 6 million people are a pittance to the crimes of the Red regime, which was funded, according to the writings of all the greatest historians of the 20th century, by the Jewish international banking houses. No, gentlemen, if this Holocaust Museum, is supposed to be a grave marker, it speaks for an insignificant amount of blood compared to the 160 million Anglo-Saxons killed in the Jewish-instigated wars of the 20th century. So 160 of us, Anglo-Saxons, probably, Orientals, American Indians, black people, Hispanic people, all in these wars, 160 million. So I don't know about you. If I'm going to have a remembrance or a museum, I'd like to just say it's for all the people who died in all those instigated wars during the 20th century, from 1900 to 1999, 2000. 100 years, 160 million of us were killed. So I think I'll read a little more from my report 2000. All right. Entering the 21st century. So that's now, 2016. Only my highlighted portions, making a point. Just remember, this document was created in 1980. 36 years ago. For every 2 persons on the earth in 1975, there will be 3 in 2000. And yes, that was said earlier in this report. The number of poor will have increased. Why will the number of poor have to increase? When, if the world is creating 10 trillion in GNP, gross national product, and they're spending 9 trillion on building the world empire and giving the local police departments militarized weapons and gear, and 200 bases or whatever all over the world building this empire. So 9 trillion went for all this, and less than 1 trillion went to the people. We wouldn't have to do all these wars and taking over countries and assassinating presidents, Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and many in Central America, South America. There were coups one just took place in Turkey. They were trying to overthrow the president. Brazil recently, they tried to overthrow the leadership. So who is not going to believe that they don't have something planned here in the U.S., whereas yesterday they were trying to do something called Day of Rage with Black Lives Matter protest, whatever, which could turn into riots in 37 major cities. It's just not logical. First of all, the black people should understand, it's not all of us white people. We're as helpless also. White people there's poor people everywhere. People are losing their homes, their jobs, their medical insurance, their health. It's not just black people. But we don't have a say in our government anymore. They try to convince people through propaganda and the 85% of mindless zombie citizens who are on drugs or drinking or partying or completely tuned out to the reality that's going on. And when the bad day happens, they're all going to be shocked and surprised and say, who didn't see this coming? Why didn't we? Well, we did. Many people are trying to warn everybody, including many Jewish people and many black people are aware of this. Go watch the YouTube videos. The gap between the richest and poorest will have increased. So back in 1980, they were predicting all this. They could have, this didn't have to happen. I didn't have to lose my home, my money. By every measure of material warfare the study provides, per capita, its GNP, consumption of food, energy, and minerals, the gap will widen. Why, if Venezuela has so much oil and gold and diamonds and beautiful land, is it necessary for the people to starve? If the leadership is that bad, who in the world would give these people leadership of the entire world? And Venezuela is socialist. Who would want a socialist USA? If they controlled the food like rationing, and they wanted to get rid of the population here in the USA, if this was allowed to come about, they could just cut off the food supply anytime they want. They have armed militias and drones and all these high-tech weapons, and they could just sit back and eat their rich food and drink wine and watch masses of people die of starvation. And if they're worshiping the devil and Satan, they're probably going to enjoy watching that. By every measure of material warfare the study provides, per capita, GNP, the consumption of food, energy, and minerals, the G gap will widen. The gap between the GNP per capita in the lesser developed countries and the industrialized countries is projected to grow. So there's going to be a wider gap between the rich and the poor. They predicted all this in 1980. From about 4,000 in 1975 to about 7,900 in 2000. There will be fewer resources to go around. With controlling the weather, they are making the crops fail with the drought conditions. And the genetically modified foods, which are Monsanto type stuff, is not good for your intestines or your body. Your stomach or your body sees those enzymes and genetically modified foods as an enemy and attacks them. According to studies, and the rats and other animals were just completely covered with tumors and everything else. Look it up. Don't believe me. Everything I'm saying, take some notes and go look it up, and you're going to finally come to that aha moment and go, son of a gun, man, we got a problem. By 2000, this 1980 report, nearly 1,000 billion barrels of the world's original petroleum, resource of approximately 2,000 billion barrels will have been consumed. And since this time, they've discovered so much more oil under the Rockies, up there in Washington State, under the ground up there, Alaska, Antarctica. I mean, enough coal to supply the world with energy for 100 years and all over the world. So this report is wrong. That's not the point. They used this report and other books published, which I have many of them, just claiming that this doom was coming. They wanted people to believe this. The environment will have lost important life-supporting capabilities. So they're saying the planet's not going to be able to support us anymore. By 2000, 40% of the forests still remaining in the lesser developed countries in 1978 will have been razed. They will be all gone, which of course didn't happen. But they had to convince the politicians and people back then that this was all true. It's all propaganda. Even for the politicians, they give them these reports. Then they make legislation and are convinced that the people need corralling like they are cattle. And like too many deer in the forest, we have to kill off some of the deer. Thin out the herd. The problem is with as many people as there are, which I do not believe there's 6 million. They lie about everything else. But they only want to keep enough people around for what they need. Everybody else is a useless food eater. The world would be more vulnerable both to natural disaster and to disruptions from human causes. Why would that be? Why would we have more natural disasters from 1980 to today? You would think with technology and proper leadership we would have lesser problems. But that's not what they want. Most nations are likely to be still more dependent on foreign sources of energy in 2000 than they are today. Long-standing conflicts over shared rivers, such as the Plata, Brazil, Argentina, Euphrates, Syria, Iraq, Ganges, Bangladesh, India, could easily intensify. And again, with the technologies of today, none of this stuff has to happen. Robert McNamara, president of the World Bank, has noted that for every decade of delay in reaching replacement fertility, the world's ultimately stabilized population will be about 11% greater. So back then, they were saying it was urgent, like they said, if we don't fix global warming this year, it's going to be a catastrophe. 10, 15 years ago. The full effects of raising concentrations of carbon dioxide, depletion of stratospheric ozone, deterioration of soils. I'm getting this depletion of stratospheric ozone. Didn't the government explode 400 nukes in the atmosphere? I'm sure anything we humans could do would be a pittance to that of damage. 400 nukes up there. What did they do? 2,000, 3,000 nukes all over the world in their testing? What did that cause? It's not in this report. The full effects of raising concentrations, I just said that, of carbon dioxide, depletion of the stratosphere ozone, deterioration of soils, increasing introduction of complex, persistent, toxic chemicals into the environment. It's the government, huge corporations, who are using all these toxins on our foods. And most of us won't eat it. We go spend more money on organic food to avoid what they're doing, trying to feed us. Let's not even talk about the sky spraying I'm looking up. Lines and powder everywhere up there. Complex, persistent, toxic chemicals into the environment. They're doing the spraying, not me, not you. And massive extinctions of species may not occur well into after 2000. And I'm continuing on with this report, almost done. There are no quick solutions, and I'm only reading my highlighted portion. You can go look up the whole report, read it. I'll show you the title again. There are no quick or easy solutions, particularly in those regions where population pressure is already leading to a reduction of the carrying capacity of the land. So Venezuela has tons of oil and gold and diamonds and everything. The elites have banquet tables and stores full of awesome food and wine, and they won't give the poor people anything, and they're having to pick the garbage and eat pigeons and rats and dogs to survive. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences report, Resources in Man. In this 1969 report, the Academy concluded that the world population of 10 billion is close, if not above, the maximum that the intensively managed world might hope to support with some degree of comfort and individual choice. Got a bug on me here. So the Global 2000 report to the President. Alright, so I should finish up this video with one more section out of this book. And if you can get the gist of what it's about, that the whole Holocaust claim was an idea invented by somebody, it's in this book, after the war, in order to have a foundation to extort billions, trillions of dollars in reparations. From all the governments, including the USA, which I don't know why we would be responsible for that, other than the fact that Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said that the Jews do control America. We know in 1913, on the Christmas holiday, the Rothschild's bankster organization created the Federal Reserve in secret with President Woodrow Wilson, who was also the guy who in secret lied to the people and got us into World War I, and who had largely Jewish advisors, much to the dismay of non-Jewish people in the Congress and the House of Representatives and elsewhere in the governments. And the Jewish people back then, before Woodrow Wilson was president, tried to get the president before him to do their bidding, and he said no. They said, okay, the next president will be under our control, and it's been that way ever since. But of course they don't want this stuff to be out, and if I was in Germany or someplace over there in Switzerland, they wouldn't let people say this on all the other videos on YouTube where people are trying to get the truth out, and books like this out. And what happens to authors about books like this? Will publishing companies publish the books? Probably not. Do the publishers or the authors be called anti-Semites or haters? Probably. But they won't let you investigate or have a discussion about what is the truth and why they're doing these things. So what do I want to read? I'm going to randomly look in here. All right, this looks like something interesting. What is the serpent system? That'll be the end of this video. I think it's been disturbing enough for my mentality. It's not easy to read this stuff and you go to bed later or go out or sit down and you think, oh my God, we're in trouble. In Unfolding the Revelation, that's a book, I guess, Unfolding the Revelation, Roy Allen Anderson says that the mystic number 666 represents a system rather than an individual man, and that the dragon, serpent, or beast was another name for paganism based on sun worship, symbolized by a serpent coiled around a tree. Anciently, the Jew believed that there was a doom upon the number 6, even when it stood alone. Triple it, and we have direfulness of faith, than which there can be none worse. Well, I can think of one that's worse. K is the 11th letter, hence in numerology it's 66. So the KKK, the Ku Klux Klans, would be 666666. Just saying. In The Trail of the Serpent, another book, by Inquire Within, or Miss Stoddard, who was a master of the lodge Stella Mutani, we find the deception. We find that the deception is to preach that man can become gods from the early Calibri through paganism to the pseudo-Christianity of the Gnostics and the Kabbalists. Initiates and those hypnotized by these theocrats worshipping the serpent forces or magnetism, this book asserts that the Kabbalah seeks to unify mankind under a new era of Masonic Judaism. So this New Age, New World Order religion will be a Masonic Judaism, and it'll be under the fundamental doctrines of the Kabbalah, and like Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, and Alice Bailey, and many other books, Kabbalah books and authors I've gone over, magazines called Lucifer. I got so much to go over in the future. You'd think I'd be at the end of my trail after almost 3 years, and up to book review number 90. Closely linked to these are theosophy and Gnosticism of the Eastern religion. The Baha'i movement also seeks to unite Judaism, Christianity, and the Druids. Yet those closest to their dream is the Alliance Israeli University, which says all but the Judaic religion will vanish. So all other religions will vanish except for the Judaic religion. And they built the Holocaust Museum, which is a religious thing, and it was spent with taxpayers' dollars, which was illegal. Since they constitute the financial power of the world and control the administration of the United Nations, I keep saying this, whose flag's colors are identical with the State of Israel, only reversed, so blue and white, United Nations also, Israel flag, blue and white, It is currently most likely that the Masonic Empire of the Jews comes daily closer to complete control of the world through the United Nations police force. And apparently in the news lately, our leaders in the United States government are trying to turn our military over to the United Nations control. That's right. Look it up on the computer. It's been in the news. But our present government, Obama's the president, and leadership are in the works, if they haven't already done it, coming up with an agreement to allow the United Nations, under these Jewish people's control, who want to rule the world, to control our military. The white star on the blue helmet of the UN soldier, the white star, so in the Israeli flag it's a blue star, is the pentagram of Illuminism. The pentagram inside a circle is a witch's symbol for magic, while the six-pointed star or hexagram represents complete power of the seal of Solomon. Solomon had a six-pointed ring which he could call forth demons. Pythagoras magics, gematria, Kabbalah, magic, witchcraft. So Solomon's ring, which could call forth demons, is on the flag of Israel. This universal kingdom is to be ruled by the signet of Solomon, the Hebrew talisman, magic symbols. Take a good look at the recycle symbol of the three arrows. You've seen the recycle symbol, it's three arrows, which form a hexagram, which now ubiquitously appears everywhere, especially where you will touch it to make its magic more effective. So I guess if you touch these symbols, the magic is more effective. The serpent has been a symbol of Judaism. The Shahandran is the head, and the rest of the body is dispersed Jews internationally. Old synagogue doors, Jewish temples, handles have cobras on them. The stained glass window in the United Nations Secretariat Room, which was designed by Mark Chagall, has the serpent as the largest figure. So the stained glass window at the United Nations has the serpent as the largest figure. So people just don't believe, I think. The best book to read to find out what occult science, the Kabbalah, is Lady Queenborough's Occult Theocracy. I have that book. I've used some of the material in previous videos. Its God is the rebel angel Lucifer. So in this spiritual world, we're all spiritual beings in these biological bodies. And for some reason, thank God, my spirit is in this body, my soul. We have been gifted with this opportunity to live on this planet. So here in this spiritual realm, they created this material world. And I guess deserving souls, or whoever, gets to come and enjoy and be a human. Maybe bad souls were given a chance to be redeemed. Maybe they volunteered and said, I want to be redeemed from my evil behavior. And God said, okay, you can be reborn on planet Earth, and I'll see what you do. Maybe. But anyways, in this other realm where souls go, there is its God is the rebel angel Lucifer, who is the god of the Freemasons. They admit that. Even though the lowest Masons gullibly believe the G over the altar means God. So lower level Masons, like so many people who yell at me, say, well, my uncle was, or my dad was, or my brother is. They don't know. And the ones who do research and find out usually leave the Freemasons. The only name that must be mentioned in the lodge, must not be mentioned in the lodge, is Jesus Christ. The books used in this study are not available from the controlled press of the Zionists. So a lot of these books you have to work hard to find, and I can tell you how to do that. Only alternate publishers who dare to print what is censored by the Jewish-owned press carry some of the books mentioned. So if you go online, websites like Abe Used Books, like Abe Lincoln, Abe Used Books, you can usually find these books. And there's a couple, if you just put in used book sites, there's about 6 of them. I think one of them is a Goodwill used book site. And they're $2 or $3. You can sometimes find these obscure books. And I have noticed that when you buy some for $2 or $3 or $5, 3 or 4 years later they're $80, and so they go way up in value. They're getting harder to get. But one of the books is Trail of the Serpent, Omni Publications. Trail of the Serpent, available from Sons of Liberty. So if you get this book, it's got every 2 pages is an essay, and then they reference the books they got the information from. I've got half of it done. I'm going to read the other half, and I'll make another video and minimize my reading from the book just to share and acknowledge that I did read it, and I did start looking stuff up that's mentioned in the book, like in this case the Global 2000 report. And with my knowledge of all the other stuff I've done, it appears this stuff is true. They intend for a bloodbath on the planet. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting. Appreciate thumbs up. And if you got any positive comments, or if you think I've said something wrong, be polite and say so. If you look at my comments on my other videos, I usually answer people and we discuss it. Sometimes we email back and forth, comment back and forth. And usually we wind up having a mutual agreement. Some people just get a little slighted if they don't totally 100% agree. And some people are a little whacked out and they say, hey, you made a typo, or you said the wrong country for that guy's name. And if you just point it out, like the guy I've been saying, Denny, who was the, I can't remember his last name, but he was the demolition expert over there in Europe. I found out through a commenter, I was saying Denmark, but this commenter corrected me and said it was the Netherlands. This Denny Zurowicz or something like that. But he was a demolition expert, and when he was shown Building 7 free-falling, and he was also told that it was not hit by a plane, he looked and said, well, that's clearly demolition. I'm a demolition expert. Well, anyways, days later, he was dead in a horrible vehicle crash into a gigantic oak tree. So all this stuff appears quite real. You know, we have to get 911 truth out and have the culprits arrested, which are probably the same people building the Holocaust Museum, and the promoters, whether they're conspirators who are non-Jews. And the politicians obviously are not looking out for we the citizens' interest. They're buying into this Global 2000 report that we're all overpopulated and we're lower-based humans and don't even deserve to live, that we're profane and animals and cattle. Apparently. Guess some people will sell their soul to live in a wealthy life, and that's incredibly too bad for them, because punishment afterwards is going to be quite terrible. And the reward for those people who do try to do the right thing and believe in Jesus, believe in God, and care about people, it's probably the right thing to do as promised in the Bible.